Hi everyone, this is Tanya from Flying Dog Studio. Thank you so much for joining me as we do a little gouache painting today. And as you can probably tell by the title, we're not going to be using thick gouache. We're going to be using it like watercolor. So let's take a look at our supplies. Now I'm going to be using the Winsor & Newton brushes. I have a size 6 and then I also have a flat brush, and spoiler alert, I will bring in a size 3 round as well. I have 2 cups of water, one for mixing, one for cleaning my brush, a microfiber cloth, and then I have pre-drawn this. I will have this on my blog, so if you want to follow along you can. This is a 5x5 piece of watercolor paper. I'll have all my supplies down below. These are the colors I am using out of the Winsor & Newton Designer Gouache, just black, white, and then the primary colors, blue, yellow, and primary red. And I don't know that we're going to use the yellow in this one, but we will use all of the other colors. I did mention when I did my opening of these and my swatching of the colors, and if you missed that, I'll put that down below. But you should be able to paint everything with just primary, so you don't have to buy the big set if you don't want to. Now, I'm starting out with just a light wash of light blue on these flowers. And as I said, I'm going to have this drawing on my blog, and I'll put all of these links down below for you so you can trace it, you can download it, whatever you want to do. I'll also have the link to my reference photo that will be down there as well. So if you want to take a look, the photographer is from Unsplash, and if you've watched any of my videos, you know I love that. I'll have all the information below if you want the actual reference photo. This is just a small portion of the reference photo. I kind of zoomed in, kind of a Georgia O'Keeffe moment here, because I really didn't want to do the entire piece, just a little too complicated. As you can see over on the right hand side of the screen, we've zoomed in and I've pre-made some colors. I took a look at the entire piece and I realized we had several blues going on here. And this is another reason that I chose this piece, because we're basically doing a monochromatic piece. Yeah, I'm going to have to use a little bit of the primary red to get some proper blues. But if you're learning gouache, if you want to learn gouache, this is an easy way to do it. And if you love watercolor, this again is an easy way to do it. Now, as I'm laying down my gouache, I do have the light wash over the entire thing. You don't have to do that, but that's just kind of something I like to do. I like to start with color on the bottom, and by putting a light wash on there and letting it dry, I let it completely dry. Then I can come back and paint on top of it, but that kind of gets my paper primed and ready to go. Now, here's what you're going to see as I'm laying down the color. You can tell over on the palette that it's a little runnier than what you would normally expect, or if you've watched other gouache videos, what you would normally see other artists do. I don't know that this is really a popular way to do gouache, but I like it, and here's why. I can add colors on and keep adding them down together, and I'm not going to get that ballooning effect that I get with watercolor. Yet it's like working with watercolor, except it's just a little bit thicker. There is a special way to lay it down though. You'll notice that I'm putting down light colors, or I'm putting down a medium color and then I'm coming back and adding dark, or I'm adding super light on top in order to kind of knock it back a little bit. The thing about gouache that's a little bit different than watercolor, when you put it on the paper, if you add a lot of water on top, even if it's dry, it's going to reactivate it and bring that up. So if we use it like watercolor, which is what I'm doing here, we can use that to our advantage. We can keep blending, and that's why I like to use it like this. Will I use it thick and do a demo of that? I may, it depends on how the mood strikes me, but I really like using gouache like this, and so I thought I would show you my technique on here. Let me know down below how you like to use gouache, if you use it a little more thick or if you use it a little more thin. kind of up to you how you use it, but let me know how you use it down below. Maybe you use a mixture of the two. But as you can see here, we can come back and we can correct if we're using it lightly. So to me, gouache is a little more forgiving. You just kind of have to be mindful of how much water you're putting in your brush. And you'll notice if I lose my mind temporarily, which I do in a couple of places because I'm used to using watercolor and not gouache, I'll have too much water in my brush and I'll lift a little of my color up. When that happens, when it's too wet, walk away from that area and come back to it once it dries a bit. But see what I can do here? I can add some really wet gouache on top and it's blending into what we have on the bottom. Now some really light white on top of that, and I'm drying my brush off a little bit, picking up a little more of that medium blue. And look, we can just blend those together. So it gives you kind of the best of both worlds. You're working as if it were watercolor, but once you get the hang of it being a little bit more opaque, your final result kind of reminds me more of acrylic. So like I said, kind of getting the best of both worlds here. I'm going to keep on with the same process, and when you see me come back like this, I'm putting a little bit thicker. I'll be working straight from the white to get some of these detail areas in. This little area has completely dried before I paint that on top. So if you want to add detail like that and correct, see how I'm correcting here? I'm coming back in just with some thick and going right back on top. And I corrected my little bobble up there. Again, I could not do that with watercolor. It's just so much easier to do it with gouache. So again, painting an entire area, have some medium blue, coming up over here, making some more, and you can tell that's pretty thin, so I'm adding a little bit more of the thicker blue to it, trying to get the proper blue so that I can come back and add the details. And for me, it doesn't matter how much this is drying over here because I'm using it like watercolor, so even if it dries a little bit on me, that's okay. Once I hit it with a little bit wetter paint, it's going to reactivate that for me. And this is the process I'm going to be using all the way through. Now, you're not going to see every little painting step through this entire thing. I'm not doing a part 1 through part 50, and I really don't know how many parts it would have taken on this because this entire thing, I believe the amount of hours I had in filming was probably about 3 or 4 hours of filming. So even speeding it up, I would have had quite a few parts on this video. And that's really my fault because even though I zoomed in on these hydrangeas, they're still extremely detailed. So it took me quite a while to get through these, and I wanted to make them a little more realistic. So I was really looking at the detail on these and taking my time with it. I will say that there was, if you've watched my videos before, I usually can only set about 30 minutes in paint, but I was super hyper focused on one day and I sat for 51 minutes and painted. So now I paid for it the next day, but I did set for that long. So if you're gonna follow along, this is the same process I'm doing all the way through. You will see me lay down either some medium blue or possibly a little bit darker blue, depending on the shadows and the blues that I need in that area. And then I will come back with either some darker blues for shadows or some lighter blues for the highlights. And again, these are going to be watered down because I'm wanting to blend it with what's already on bottom. And if you see any of the highlight areas, or if I'm fixing a really dark area, I'm going to be waiting until that dries and then coming back with some thicker paint on my brush. And you may even see me reach over into the original areas where I have the paint squirted out and just touch that paint. Again, this is what those 2 cups of water are for. One is for cleaning my brush after I've been painting and mixing stuff on my palette. I will clean my brush, especially when I go to that white. I will then dip over into the clean water so that I can go to the white and keep all of my original colors clean. And when I get finished painting with this piece, I'm going to come over to the colors that I've mixed. I'll wipe those off my palette. and then I'll have my primary colors there ready to go. So it's not a waste on these. So everything you see me having squirted out on there, I will be using that again for future projects. So this is my process, and I'll hop back on in just a few minutes and we'll talk some more, but I'm going to let you watch me work. And if you have any questions about my process, please put those down below and I will get back to you on it. I promise that I will. I may be slow, but I will get back to you on it. So here's a little musical interlude, and I'm going to hop back on in just a minute. Now, because this piece took a little while to do, this is the end of day one for me. Now, this is an entirely new day. You can tell the lighting has changed a bit. And on our final day, you'll see that there was actually some sunshine. But this had some time to dry overnight. I needed to add that dark in that you just saw me add. And it was very easy to do that with some thick paint. And then I was ready to go on to the next section. Now, I laid down some blue on this, and I realized, it really needs to be a bit lighter. So because we're working with it like watercolor, I was able to water it down, as you see I'm doing here, and then just paint right back over the top. It reactivates the blue underneath, and then I get the light blue that I need. So now I can come back in and add all of those details. And if you've never worked with gouache before, something that you'll have to keep in mind. If you put down a dark color, it's going to dry lighter than what you expect. And if you put down a light color like the white, it's going to dry darker than you expect. So you will see that sometimes I feel as if I've done an area in white and I kind of walk away from it, painting wise, and work in another area. You'll see me come back and reactivate and paint that area light again. That's because it's drying darker than what I want it to dry. And that's just a part of working with gouache. And because I don't normally work with gouache, I'm usually working with watercolor I kind of have to adjust my brain. So you'll see me try to adjust throughout this piece. I pick it up and I start working with it like watercolor, and immediately I fall into watercolor, and then I remember when something dries darker than I want it to, that I'm gonna have to do some color correcting. And again, the good news is, because we're using it like watercolor, it's going to be easy to do. So I'm going to hop off now again and let you watch me work, and we'll talk again in a few minutes. Just a few more paint strokes on this detail here, and this will be the end of day 2 painting for me. And now day 3, we have sunshine. And I really liked that day 3 here, we had the sunshine, because you can really see what it looks like from the days before where I painted. And this is why I work in front of a window. And many days, I have some sunshine, but once we hit winter time in the south, it's just gray days. So when I have a day of sunshine, it's like hallelujah. But generally that's between 3 and 4 o'clock in the afternoon that the sun is perfect coming in my window. Otherwise it just washes the whole thing out. But right now we have perfect light coming in, and you can really see how things are shaping up as compared to the days before where I painted. The blue that I've laid down right now is the same shade of blue that I put down in other areas over on the left-hand side. But again, it is going to dry lighter than what we expect. So right now it's nice and bright, but in a few minutes it's going to kind of tone down a little bit, and then we're going to see it mix in and match the blues on the left-hand side. One thing that didn't match, as the sun came in and I was able to really see my colors on the paper. And again, gray days is kind of hard with that light, and I don't like using unnatural light to do my art, but I could tell in the sunshine as I was looking at my reference photo, and you can see I'm adding some more red in here, there was almost some periwinkle in here, almost some red, violet, periwinkle colors. So you're going to see me add those in, and then I will kind of look at the piece and then go over to the left hand side and add those colors on top of things that have already dried, things that I painted, 2 days before. But because I'm using thin paint, I can reactivate that color underneath. It's not going to just lift it up, but it's going to allow me to blend in with it. So that's going to work perfectly to come back and color correct those pieces. Now, if I were doing that just with watercolor, I would have to be super careful about how much water I had in my brush, because I could create kind of that ballooning effect. So I'd have to color correct or use water in an entire area in order to keep that from happening. It's just a matter of learning the different mediums, learning the different materials. But once you work with this, if you haven't tried gouache, I do highly recommend you get the primary colors and black and white. And go with Winsor and Newton, because these colors have worked great. Again, if you haven't watched where I opened these up and swatched the colors, there were people I saw in the comments where they purchased theirs, and I believe I was looking at Dick Blick. That's where I purchased these. But people were unhappy about a few things with these colors. I've not found these to be a problem. Maybe if you're wanting them creamy, the way they dry on the palette, yeah, they're going to crack, but you can expect that with watercolor type products. So that's really not a problem. Plus, if you're using it like this, we just need it to activate somewhat so that we can use it like watercolor. So works perfectly. Now my little red up at the top, that little glob, once I got completely done with this, that actually, when it dried, it fell off in my drawer, and so I had to wet it and kind of stick it back down to the palette. But again, just get the 3 primary colors and make sure they're primary red, primary yellow, and primary blue. They need to say that. Don't just pick a red that you think is pretty. They need to be the primary colors, and then the white and the black. And then you'll be able to paint whatever you want, because look how many blues we got just with that one blue, just by adding white and the black and the primary red. But you're going to see me in a few minutes make kind of a purple color and go back and forth and kind of color correct and bring those colors in on the left hand side as well. And it was somewhere in here that I took a look at things and went, I think this is too purple. And then I looked at it again and went, the other side's just not purple enough. So there we go. We're going to color correct. I'm coming back over. I'm making certain that I have just the right amount of water in my brush, that if I need to reactivate, I should say, the blue that's already on the paper so that it will blend in well, then I'll be able to do that. So I'm just adding one color right back on top. And if you get too much red, and you're going to notice this is one problem I will say with that red. You can see right in the center of that purple where I was mixing, some little flakes of that red will get in there, and they are hard to mix in. So it gets a little bit too red up here, but again, not a problem. I'm just going to pick up the blue, go back over the top. There's the blue, go back over the top, and then it corrects everything. And if you lose an area, if you make it too dark, just simply pick up the white, make sure it's thin enough, paint right back over the top of it, and it will be perfect. As you can see, I'm coming back with some really thick gouache, some of that white right on top where I need some super white details, and all that area, remember, is completely dry when I'm adding that thicker white on top. Will be just a few more few more paint strokes, and we have come to the end of this little project. If you have made it to the end, thank you so much. Let me know down below in the comments that you made it all the way through. I appreciate your being here. And if you are new to the channel, welcome. We are so happy that you're here. I hope that all of you have found something useful in this video, something that will help you out or encourage you to start using gouache if you haven't already started using gouache. And if you are new, I hope you'll subscribe and join us for more of these little projects. I do have an entirely new series that's going to start right before Christmas. I hope you'll join me for that one and upcoming projects in the future. But until then, my friends, I'll see you in the next one.